Okay, hello everyone. I will talk about horse riding in the Avar period, according to the historical and archaeological sources. The Avars, a tribal confederation of presumably Central Asian origin, were present in Central Europe from the late 6th to the early 9th century AD. According to the historical sources, which are mainly Byzantine, the Avars originally lived as equestrian nomads, and they were accomplished mounted warriors. The Avars are part of our history, even on a very local level. In the 7th, 8th century AD, present-day Vienna belonged to the westernmost border region of the Avar Empire. And just a few kilometers down the road from the bio building is the Avar burial ground in the 11th district, Wien Czokorgasse, with more than 700 burials, which was used for 5 generations from about the mid-7th to the end of the 8th century AD. And here you see some typical jewelry and belt sets, which were very important for the Avar men as status symbols. Here's some examples of jewelry items from the 8th century. And in the latest phase of this burial ground, a small number of human horse burials were found. These are in the bottom right, the large burial chambers. And the most spectacular example is grave 650, which is the burial of a quite old man with his horse, with all his weapons and the remains of the horse tack and all the equipment. The proportion of human horse burials in this site is only around 1%, and only in the very late period, which is actually quite striking. And stirrups, metal bridles, and ornaments are normally all that remains of Avar period horse tack. The Avars played a major role in the technology transfer of metal stirrups from Asia to Europe, and they were presumably the first cavalry army in history to use them on a regular basis. But one could discuss a lot what the practical uses of stirrups actually are. And this is something which I'm going to approach later very briefly with the help of modern horseback archery. The Byzantine military handbook Strategikon from about 600 AD writes about the Avar mounted warriors, that they are armed with mail, swords, bows, and lances, and they handle 2 different weapons at once. They alternate between them, and they give special attention to training in archery on horseback. And the Strategikon also stresses the importance of speed in horseback archery, both in the training on foot with different modes of drawing the bow, and on the different basic techniques in shooting, which is to the front, to the back, to both sides, which in one case is the famous offside shot, which is quite tricky, which I will show later. Hunting with bow and arrow from horseback was an important aspect of the way of life of the Avar elite, even in the late Avar period in the 8th century. And I would also propose this as an interpretation actually for the burials, the human horse burials, which we have in this late phase in the Czokorgasse. And I would like to say that in terms of the mounted combat and hunting techniques, the iconographical evidence, for example, on Nagyszentmiklós Treasure Jug Nr. 2, and the historical and the archaeological evidence are in accordance. This late Avar belt ornament, also from the 8th century, shows a horseback archer galloping at full speed. The technique is, surprisingly, sitting down in the saddle in the front shot, And we can see a saddle, but as far as I can see, no stirrups, a small horsebow, and a side quiver for the arrows. Modern horseback archery can be helpful for a better understanding of ancient combat techniques and for understanding better these types of shots, front shot, side shot, back shot, offside shot, which are depicted in the iconography of various early medieval cultures. For example, the Sasanian silver vessels show very nicely often the back shot. And a leather saddle with stirrups in the modern archery is an asset for enhanced stability, permitting rapid and effective shooting while standing up, which makes it easier to move over the neck of the horse as well. Nevertheless, horseback archery is possible without stirrups and even without a saddle, as demonstrated by Assyrian King Assurbanipal in the 7th century BC, an example from the British Museum. And he is executing the tricky offside shot where he has to move his arms on the other side of the neck of the horse. Even this is possible just sitting on a blanket. A comparison of riding styles, modern and historic, is very instructive, but in all cases, the basis of communication between rider and horse is always the seat and legs, regardless of riding style and equestrian discipline. But in dressage, for example, which also has historic roots in military traditions, you have reins, you have a permanent contact with the horse's mouth, although it's supposed to be very light. But in all mounted combat techniques, you have to control your horse without the reins. You have no contact with the horse's mouth. Modern day horses come in all shapes and sizes. The average size for horses in the Avar period was around 140, compared to the native ponies I've just shown. Two major traits of the horse riding syndrome from our research in the Czokorgasse, the Poirier's facet marked by letter B, and the vertical elongation of the acetabulum determined by the index of ovalization. And just one small result, which was very interesting, that in male adults, habitual horse riding is predominantly a high status activity. And another thing, the presence of osteoarthritis of the knee joint in some individuals with horse riding syndrome from our sample may indicate possible stirrup use. And the sports medicine literature actually suggests that the forces which work on the knee during horse riding are something that can be quite significant. And here just a small glimpse into perhaps, I hope, my future research, which could be comparative reconstructive studies on ancient mounted combat techniques, riding styles, and horse tack with the help of an equestrian simulator, which we now have available in Vienna. Thank you for your attention.